So what if I told you that the way a cutting-edge AI learns to read has this, I don't know, almost uncanny parallel in 13th century metaphysics? It's a wild idea, I know. But today, we're going to dig into how the act of creation, whether it's divine or digital, always seems to start by breaking something whole into tiny little pieces. Let's dive in. So let's start with this really profound idea from the mystic philosopher Ibn Arabi. He looked at the universe and didn't just see a bunch of stuff. He saw it as a form of divine speech. In his view, every star, every person, every single thing that happens is like a word spoken by a divine source. It's like all of existence is one massive, meaningful text that we're living inside. All right, here's our roadmap for connecting these two very different worlds. First, we're going to talk about this cosmic idea of a single, unbroken reality. Then we'll see what happens when that reality gets broken into words, both in mysticism and in computer code. We'll look at the hidden costs of this digital chopping up. And finally, we'll explore how AI researchers are now, kind of ironically, trying to put all the pieces back together. Okay, so first up, let's really get our heads around this concept of an undifferentiated whole, which comes to us from a school of thought called Akbarian cosmology. The central idea here is something called the Nafas al-Rahman, or the breath of the compassionate. And look, this isn't just pretty poetry. For them, this is the literal, primordial stuff of reality. Imagine it like a continuous, invisible mist, or maybe a silent, vibrating energy field that everything else can emerge from. It's pure, raw potential, before anything has a specific name or shape. And this is the absolute key right here. This breath isn't just physical matter. It's the very medium where meaning itself takes form. It's where distinct letters and sounds can pop out and actually become ideas. Think of it as the continuous, blank canvas that you have to have before you can paint any individual part of reality onto it. Okay, so hold that thought of a continuous, divine breath. Now, let's completely pivot to the digital world and see how an AI performs its own version of this act of articulation. You know, before an AI can even begin to understand a sentence, it has to do something kind of brutal. It's called tokenization. It takes the beautiful, flowing river of human language and just shatters it into tiny, calculable chunks called tokens. And unlike that divine process we just talked about, this isn't about manifesting meaning. No, it's a purely practical, almost crude step. A computer can't deal with a fluid sentence, but a list of numbers? Yeah, it can handle that perfectly. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You take a complex, unified word like bioinformatics, and the AI just chops it up into smaller, more common subwords. This lets the model handle a huge vocabulary way more efficiently. But just notice what's happening here. The organic unity, the very wholeness of the word, is sacrificed for the sake of calculation. So now we can really see the parallel taking shape. On one side, we have this idea of divine creation, and on the other, we have something that looks almost like a technological parody of it. This chart really lays the difference bare, doesn't it? The whole goal of divine articulation is to create meaning. The goal of AI tokenization is simply to make language countable. One process leads to divine words, things with actual substance and reality. The other, well, it leads to statistical fragments, little pieces that have absolutely no meaning on their own. And that brings us to a really critical question. What is the cost of doing this? What do we actually lose when we force the continuous flow of language, what you might even call the logos, or the river of meaning, onto this rigid, unforgiving grid of numbers? Some critics have a really strong term for this. They call it a nominalist violence. Now, that sounds super intense, I know, but the idea behind it is pretty simple. Nominalism is basically the view that a word, say love, is just a label, with no deeper reality behind it. Well, tokenization does exactly that on a technical level. It treats words like empty labels. It rips them away from their history, their roots, all their rich, interconnected meanings, and just turns them into a number in a database. And this diagram right here shows the most important takeaway of all. The AI only does step 2. That's it. It's just a hyper-advanced pattern-matching machine, arranging symbols based on what's statistically probable. It has zero, and I mean zero, access to what any of those symbols actually mean. All the meaning, all the understanding, all of step 3, that comes from us. We're the ones who read its jumble of tokens and project sense onto it. And this isn't just some abstract theory. You've probably seen the consequences yourself. Researchers have pointed out that AIs tend to meander incoherently. And why is that? Well, it's because they have no continuous self, no stable core of understanding. They're just living from one token to the next, constantly predicting what's statistically likely to come after. And that's exactly why they can so easily contradict something they said just a moment ago. There's no there. So, is that it? Is AI just stuck in this fragmented world forever? Well, in our final section, we're going to look at the search for continuity and ask whether this digital fracture can ever truly be healed. The good news is researchers are very aware this is a problem. There's a huge push now to move beyond tokens. You see new methods like vectorial representations, which try to place words in a kind of meaning map, where words like king and queen are actually located close to each other mathematically. The ultimate goal, as you can see, is to try and heal that fracture, to process language less like a chain of separate broken links and more like a continuous wave. At the end of the day, this whole thing really boils down to a fundamental tension, right? Our logical minds are intellects. They love to put things in boxes. We create discrete categories for everything. But our actual experience of consciousness, our soul, if you will, feels much more like a continuous flow, like a wave. AI, right now, is an absolute master of the box. It lives and breathes in a world of ones and zeros, of discrete, separate parts. And that leaves us with this final, massive question. Can a system that is fundamentally built on discrete, fragmented pieces, can it ever truly grasp the continuous, flowing, and deeply interconnected nature of reality? Or will it forever be a brilliant mirror, just reflecting our own language back at us, without ever truly understanding the breadth of meaning that actually gives it all life?